I'm back with Yair Netanyahu, the son of the Israeli prime minister. He's also a columnist, a conservative activist, a radio host, a podcast host. You can follow him on Twitter at Yair, Y-A-I-R, Netanyahu. Yair, let's come to contemporary Israeli politics. You're in a very unique position. You're the son of the prime minister. You're watching these both domestic and international issues play out right in front of you. Talk a little bit about what it's like seeing Israeli politics and international politics from your unique angle.
Well, Israeli politics is nasty and very tough, especially if you're a conservative politician like my father, who's being very successful in representing his voters and not being like just a wishy-washy conservative, but a real conservative who's delivering for his constituency and for his country. That's because our media is very, very, very hardcore, progressive, and they're ruthless, just like, I guess, the American media for conservative politicians or activists, and it's tough, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting to me because when Debbie and I came to Israel in December, we got the impression, maybe an illusion, of a kind of relatively cohesive Jewish community that has common objectives, that protects a common heritage and a common history. So, for example, as you know, in America, you've got leftists who knock down monuments. They don't like George Washington. They want to change the name of anything named after Madison. In Israel, we didn't see any of that. And yet what you seem to be saying is that there are parallels between the left in the United States and the left in Israel. Can you say more about that?
Well, it's true for the most part, but not for the small radical left-wing minority in Israel, which is very anti-Zionist, very anti-Jewish traditions and faith and everything. They are exactly like, it's a small minority in Israel, but they control all of the media, all of the academia, all of the Supreme Courts and, the bureaucracy and deep state in Israel. And they are very radical, very violent. And some of them are, communist, basically. And they see Israel as an illegitimate country that's supposed to stop being a Jewish state and should become just like any other country with no national identity, with no any Jewish background. And that's a big problem for one specific reason, because unlike America, that you guys have 300 million people and coming from all backgrounds, Israel is the only Jewish country in the world. It's in the size of New Jersey, and it's only 9 million people, out of which the Jews are only 75%, or you can count it as 80%. And the Arabs, mostly Muslims, are something like 20%. Now, if we change our immigration laws like they want to, the radical left in Israel, that means that Muslims and Arabs from out the Middle East will pour in to Israel and immigrate to Israel. And we also have a border with Egypt that has a border with African countries. And we had a problem from huge illegal immigration coming from our southern border from Egypt of Africans, illegal immigrants. By the way, my dad is the only one who ever did something with it, and he completely stopped the illegal immigration by building a fence along the Israeli-Egyptian border, which stopped the illegal immigration completely. But still, they want to change our immigration law to make it possible for tens of millions of people in the Middle East and Africa to immigrate to our country, and that will be the end of the Jewish state, obviously.
When you're talking about the left dominating these key institutions, media, academia, the legal profession, I mean, it's very eerily similar to the United States. But if they are a relatively small minority in Israel, how have they been able to accumulate so much power? Is it because they happen to be in these kind of key professions? Is it that they have developed an effective strategy to take over those institutions? How do you trace the power of the left to make it such a threat if they don't have widespread popular support?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think the core of their control is through the Israeli Supreme Court, which took throughout the decades powers with no consent, without a vote from the people, from the parliament and from the government, and became the real ruler of the land, which is the Supreme Court. And unlike America, the American people has a say who will be the Supreme Court justices by electing a president and electing a Senate and a Congress. In our system currently, and that's why there's a whole, that's a big battle going on right now in Israel. The current conservative government is trying to change it, and because right now the Supreme Court justices are elected by themselves, without any say of the politicians and the parliament. So, nevertheless, of course, not the government. So the people are going and voting in elections, but it means almost nothing, because the real rulers of the land, the people that have all the powers, are the Supreme Court justices that never been elected by the people. And from there, it's like they made laws, and it's not laws because it's not by the parliament. They made decisions to make sure that only their kind of very radical kind of AOC kind of people and Bernie Sanders kind of people will be able to be nominated to the Israeli top bureaucracy and to the top officials in the police, academia. They maintain a monopoly of the radical left in the Israeli media market through regulations that they control. So and now this reforms in the conservative government trying to change it and make our system more like the American system or the Canadian or the British system.
Wow, yeah, I actually had no idea that that the courts in Israel were this kind of self-perpetuating body that was not really accountable to any of the other branches of government. Listen, you've been a great guest. I want to thank you for joining me. Very illuminating stuff. Guys, check out Yair Netanyahu on Twitter, at Yair Netanyahu. Yair, a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you.